Greetings and salutations, folks, and welcome to Max Payne 3. Max Payne 3 for me, I think, is more of an eventuality to play through. I don't feel quite as strongly about Max Payne 3 as I do about Max Payne 2, the second one being my favorite of the series. When Max Payne 3 came out, I played it, I picked it up at launch, and it was kind of interesting picking up at launch, but maybe I'll sneak that in later. That story in later. But for now, I just want to say that I don't know how much I really cared about it at launch. I think I only thought it was okay. It was neat that Rockstar had taken the time to develop a new Max Payne game because it had been so long. And it was nice of them to remedy the lack of Max Payne sequels. But it felt as though Max Payne 3 didn't really feel as much of a sequel as much as just like an in-between iteration between stories. And I think most of it is because Max Payne 3, like in the story of the game, Max is in another country dealing with other people's problems. None of the problems in the story are really Max's problems. It's like he's basically running away from his problems, and in his attempt to run away from his problems, he ends up stuck in somebody else's story. But over the years, I feel as though I've turned towards liking this game more and more. It has a strange sort of weightiness to it, but again, but I do enjoy the time mechanic. I think the shooting actually is pretty good, and the story is actually pretty interesting in regards to the drama that does unfold. It's not quite as noir-esque, and actually, just recently, a friend of mine and I was telling him quotes from Max Payne 1 and 2. Because he had never played any of the Max Payne games. And I feel as though a lot of Max Payne quotes are fantastic without context. But there is something you can see different in Max Payne 3. The way that the story's written, the way that the dialogue is written, the way that Max's own narration is written. Max Payne 1 and 2 are just so... there's so much about Max's inner pain, so to speak, whereas Part 3 focuses a lot about exterior issues. It's about the drinking, the drugs. But I feel as though a lot of the inspiration for the way they made it... By the way, for some reason, I'm going to be trying this on hard. I played this like a little bit. I ended up going through like the first 2 or 3 chapters just to see how well this runs on my computer on medium, and I was just more or less blasting my way through bad guys without much of a challenge, so I'm going to play it on hard. I've played it on hard before, and I know there are going to be very specific sequences, especially at the airport, in which I'm going to have some difficulty, but hopefully we can bear with me on this one. But I feel like a lot of the style issues, a lot of the story issues, or not issues, wrong word. A lot of the style choices, a lot of the story choices are basically the writers asking to themselves, what if Max Payne was a real person who existed in the real world?
Time to move on.
There's some interesting style choices, like the video. I forget artifacting. There we go. The artifacting in the video, the doubling up of images. I don't know enough about the terminology to really describe it properly, but it's not exactly like
I said.
There's definitely a lot of visual style to this game that kind of reminds me of Kane and Lynch 2. But for the story choices, Like, what if you had this cop who drank far too much and downed far too many painkillers, which itself is an interesting story element, considering the fact that this game came out years before the opioid epidemic has become so prevalent in modern culture.
Honest, I just got kind of bored of boozing.
Like, it was just more, it wasn't really a commentary about his own addiction to medication as much as it's a commentary about the medication being a gameplay element. Also, that original score by Health, like, I don't, like, you could argue that certain elements of this game may not have aged as well as others, and definitely, like, as time goes on, like, certain, like, the visual elements, the visual artifacting, seem just more like a style choice rather than something necessary for the story.
It certainly ain't New Jersey.
Or, like, turning the story from New York to Brazil. Deciding that a noir story should take place in daylight. But the score by Health, that I believe will hold on, because it is amazing.
What have I got to lose? Apart from the weight. Very funny. Ha ha. Yes, that is a fake laugh, you jerk.
But I do remember really liking how the cinematography of this intro, the cutting back for cutting forward and back through time, was very neat. And this is also probably the only time he visits the grave of his family. I don't think that doesn't actually show up in part 2. Like, he wrestles with their deaths, and that's essentially the prime reason for his own darkness, so to speak. Also, I like the gentle patting of the photo down onto the table. Is that Kong whiskey? Now, if you started the game new, that entire intro sequence would just play out. Like, you wouldn't even get to the menu. Like, you just see him coming home and drinking himself throughout the rest of the day. And then it would just take forever to load. But like all Max Payne games, it starts with the end.
What they wanted me to be. A killer. Some rent-a-clown with a gun who puts holes in other bad guys. Well, that's what they had paid for, so in the end, that's what they got. Say what you want about Americans, but we understand capitalism. You buy yourself a product and you get what you pay for. And these chumps had paid for some angry gringo without the sensibilities to know right from wrong.
Although this is actually slightly...
Here I was, about to execute this poor bastard like some dime store angel of death. And
Max Payne 1 ends with, sorry, not ends, starts with the...
helping the poor and the other was banging my sister.
Look, what if his sister wanted it? Like, who are you to judge, Max?
I'd arrived in Sao Paulo a few weeks before. I was working a protection detail for the kind.
But like, Max Payne 1 begins after everybody's been defeated. Max Payne 2 begins after everyone has been defeated.
Down their drinks. So for now, we seem to get along just
also,
fine.
Nice view from this penthouse suite. Then we got his partner in crime in the security detail.
Scotch. I never mix my drinks.
Yeah, at least not on duty.
Something like that.
Man.
I drink, but I don't drink mixed drinks. That's how I hold back.
Nothing like the view of extreme poverty to make a penthouse cocktail party really swing.
I guess they call it trickle-down economics.
What, the poor drink the alcohol that spills off the roof? I don't think that works.
I don't know. Something for the kids. Hey, listen, man. We better look lively. This place is a nightmare. They just got
I don't know what you expect asking somebody like Max to look lively.
That didn't mean
Also,
much. There was always something rotten in the air.
I feel as though
Protecting were local celebrities.
Max's job is a
Parasites
bit
with
of
delusions
impossibility
humanity.
considering the
Kind of
enemies
people
that
like
he's up
glossy
against.
magazines or body bags, depending on how their luck runs.
Although
I see Rodrigo over there talking to that guy.
now we've got a great intro to actually introduce all of these characters who are going to be important for the rest of the story.
serious, though. Big end cop, anti-gang sort of thing. I can't remember his name.
So who's this guy?
That guy's a plastic surgeon or some kind of surgeon. Tommy tucks and cock implants. Ha, look at Marcel. Still dances like a fool.
Guess that's what a European education and a coke habit will do for Ricky Martin look-alike.
I especially like the fact that he's not even looking at the person he's dancing with. But I suppose that says a lot about Marcelo as a character.
I was mostly working for Rodrigo Branco, a local businessman. Built things, did some charity, had things named after him, won awards, owned things, people. One of the trophies he had won was his wife, Fabiana. She was hot and wanted to be dangerous. Some good genes trying to fight their way out of a cesspit. She'd married well and was now at leisure to regret her good fortune. They got along as well as any rich workaholic and his younger airhead wife tend to get along. They mostly ignored each other. She spent a lot of time with his cokehead younger brother.
And I feel like a lot of
He was
the
a
style
good-time
choices
guy
for the
if your
story
idea of a good time was an
is, yeah,
expensive suit, a bottle
like I
of
said before,
champagne, and nothing
is
between.
meant to be like,
Middle
what
brother,
if
Victor,
Max Payne
just walked
existed in the real
He
world?
was a local
And you can
politician.
kind of see that in the
Guy was
camera
smoother
work
than an
too.
oil slick on an iceberg and about as toxic. The rest of the crowd, I didn't know.
I
But
forget
could
which
imagine
character
fights.
sets up which character, but one of the family members is actually the cause of all the problems. Possibly that politician guy.
Suddenly things turned real. Felt like our hangovers arrived right on cue.
But you look at the camera work in this game, and it feels as though somebody is always holding a camera. Also, something to note about these frames. It feels as though this was also a style choice to bring it closer to Max Payne 1 and 2, which was all told largely in
And now there were two
comic book panels. Whereas this game does not use the comic book panel approach because
Got this floor?
in between Max Payne 2 and 3, the amount of graphical fidelity a game could have had increased tenfold. So it didn't need that to still look good. Take that. Take that. Alright. I don't know why the environment was shaking just there. I don't necessarily need two guns. One of the things I don't really care for about this game is that you have very limited weaponry. You can only carry up two small guns and one main gun. Whereas in Max Payne 1 and 2 you can carry whole bunches of shotguns. But again, the idea is that more realism. So Max has two guns holstered underneath his shirt, underneath his coat. Oh. Oh, that worked.
That was the boss lady. Only this time she wasn't calling for more liquor in her cocktail.
But yeah, it's all about increasing the realism. You're not Max doesn't carry around or can't physically carry around that many weapons. Also,
Trashy magazines and pretty trashy people. I just
Dr.
hope that
Arthur
keep them out of the
Fisher
crime
is
section.
right there on the page there. Like in cutscenes, whenever he's carrying a main gun, he tends
He was
to...
out on one of the balconies, and I hoped not about to be thrown off it.
Like, Max tends to hold the gun either... Like, he just holds his, like, larger gun, or he holds his gun in one hand and then pulls out the pistol with another. We'll see that
It
later.
might have been stupidity or drunkenness, or maybe both. But before I knew it, I was back taking insane risks, trying to save fallen women.
And that's how every Max Payne game begins. Although this one changes things up, because you do save Fabiana. The game does not begin with the death of a woman.
Tranquila! Tranquila! Nós cuidamos disso.
Nice work. Hey, you need a hand?
No, you?
And how generous of Max to hand off his wet gun.
Thanks.
Somebody's gotta go find him.
Está tudo sob controle agora. Fica tranquilo.
Also, convenient elevator door just staying open long enough for Max
I
to
imagine
slip
the
in.
elevator door is opening to a firing squad of muzzles. As far as I could see it, the one thing my plan had going was that no one else would be stupid enough to pull this move.
And bang.
Where's Bronco?
I find it especially humorous at the idea that Max would be shouting that out as he's flying through the air. And let's take cover. Oh, hello. And pop out and soap. Aha, take that. You can do it. Just raise your head. It's all right.
I'd done them enough favors. I didn't need to give them more of a head start.
And I think you can see why felt it was all right to play it on a harder difficulty. Because if I had played it on a lower difficulty, it would be easier than this. And you can slow-mo their fall for some reason. Hold on, what has he got? He has a rifle. I'm just going to switch to that. But I believe in this next cutscene, Max is going
Looked
to
like they were taking him out through the basement. Maybe I still had a shot.
swap the rifle out and hold it in. Yeah.
Rodrigo was too rich a prize.
So you
for me to
notice how
throw
he,
away.
instead of
Sure,
pointing the
I
rifle that
thought
he
came
has,
back, but I knew the
he's
bad
pointing the
guy was the
handgun.
boss alive.
And I think that's something to do with the way that
Almost
the
as much as I
cutscenes are engineered. Also, I don't know why all of those were cross shots. There we go. Oh, hello. That's where you are. That was too early. You are almost dead. Kill your attacker to be the last man standing.
Weren't far ahead. Once I opened the door,
Yep. And that also uses, that's an interesting gameplay addition. Is, if you kill an attacker while down, and with that last bullet, it uses, your painkiller. In order to bring you back up. We got a
great thing
photo.
about being famous as well as rich.
But yeah, you can
Bad guys
like
know
every cutscene, it feels like you can see somebody holding the camera, pointing the camera at the thing, zooming in.
With gunfire. Was I too late?
There we go. Also, the splotches of blood on everybody kind of just remind me of Alone in the Dark Inferno. Is that just the PS3 edition, or is it just called Alone in the Dark on the 360? And then we'll take this guy out.
Stay down, Mr. Bronco!
More crotch shots. Last man standing shot uses up some painkillers.
Everything is okay.
That's fine. Let's switch to dual pistols for this last moment. I think that'll work. And unfortunately, Rodrigo almost brought about his own demise.
You're okay. You're okay. Come on, get up. Come on, get up. You're okay. Come with me. Just come. It's okay. Stay right here.
And also,
Ei, vocês aí! Que porra vocês estão fazendo? A justiça local.
like, now I think this kind of leads to one of the main plot points and also the problems that Max has to deal with, is the competing police forces, the UFA, and the regular police.
Chama uma ambulância!
Like, and he's like calling for an ambulance, and this guy's like looking at his gun, like,
Say so.
I can't call an ambulance with my gun.
What could be better, huh? The good guys are reunited, and the Commando Sombra are dead.
Also, another style choice is highlighting specific words in the world.
Some kind of cop. Different branch of the police, not UFE, but normal cops.
I like how nobody really knows everybody by name, but they know everybody by reputation.
Slot home, and then I'll get you home too. Come on.
And again, like those frames, like that attempts to bring the comic book style. I don't know how well that really works. Like it works better here than it did in the Hulk because with Eric Bana, because that movie was a bit too
Back
much.
home, it was time for some R&R. The only way I knew how.
By drinking constantly and downing painkillers. Nothing like a big old bottle of Kong whiskey until you vomit into the kitchen sink. Which almost... I find it to be almost kind of a little bit on the cliched side for
I was ready for bed.
for characters with internal problems. Is we're just gonna have the character drink tons of alcohol. That's how you know they've got internal problems, because they're constantly drinking. And I don't remember Max in Max Payne 1 or 2 drinking alcohol nonstop. Thank you for watching. Questions, comments,
A couple of
recommendations
days
for
later,
something
I was
to
back
play
to
next?
work, ferrying the boss's broad.
Comment down below or send it on over to itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. That's itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. So long for now.